Okay, guys. So let's get it started. Who am I? Today we'll talk about CodeSpaces, but that's me. I'm Ivailo, technical architect at Jacala. I have more than 9 years of technical experience, and some of my achievements are here. Like I've been able to lead an academy for Drupalists, and we've managed to educate more than 350 people there. I also have 20 plus successful projects, and I'm the face of that academy and the main lecturer. The rest, we'll talk about that later. So, what's CodeSpaces, and why did I decide to bring that topic here? I'm not going to do a sales pitch here for the service or the GitHub's tool in that case. My sales pitch is for the idea and the actual way of handling development workflows with similar tools. So it could be any other tool that gives you the same capabilities and functionalities. So just accept what I'm saying here as just a paradigm of a workflow and a way of handling that experience other than a sales pitch for that particular tool. So what does that give you, and what is CodeSpaces in general? I chose it because it gives you a cloud-based dev environment, and it's also ready to code instantly. It gives you anything that a regular Docker instance gives you out of the box locally in combination with IDE and strong PC like MacBook Pro or any other, but it does that in the cloud. So by doing that, you do not require any local setup. You do not require to be somewhere specific, and the most importantly, you do not require to have a high-end PC, or for that matter, a PC. You can have a tablet with a keyboard, and you can still do the same thing as you were doing it at the office. So that's a nice thing, at least for me. Then it has a 60-hour a month free, so that's per each month per account. But what that gives you is the complete freedom to create a code space in an environment from any branch of your repository. Why is that good? We'll cover that in the next slides, but then you have 15 gigabytes of storage, which is quite substantial, and I think for regular use cases it's more than enough, at least from my experience. That's how the whole thing looks. Imagine that iceberg is like our whole workflow. We have some infrastructure changes that rarely happen, and then we have dev dependencies. Those dependencies and packages, they might change here and there, and then we have feature updates that are happening really often. And then at the top we have the code space and its pre-builds. What that gives us is the opportunity to observe each feature individually on the feature branch, and we can also do that not only by being developers. The QAs can also do that. The product owners as well. The clients can also have a link and access to that, and you can also share those. I'll get to that later, but that's probably one of the best selling points that actually made me start using that feature or that service. Why? Why CodeSpaces? So, instant environments was something that was how should I say it, a must for me, because sometimes I'm working on 3, 4, 5 features simultaneously. So I need that to happen fast. I need to be able to go to a feature and check something real fast, and I need an environment for that. But I also have to go really fast to another one. But sometimes the QA might come and tell me, okay, there's something broken here, and then we have to reproduce that. Then we go to the last point here, which is instant hotfixes. What that means is that with CodeSpaces and easy to share consistent environments gives us the capability to, for example, the QA might spin up an environment from a specific branch to check the feature, and then he finds a corner case that has an issue or a bug. Usually in the regular development workflow, what happens? So there's a lengthy communication between you and the QA. How did it end up like this? How did he reach that? How to reproduce that? Lengthy conversations or chats with steps to reproduce and tickets, etc., etc. So that could be hours and hours before you actually do your 5-minute fix. Now we jump straight to the 5-minute fix because the QA now can straight give me a deep link to his instance of the code space, which is like a virtual Docker container somewhere in the web. I click that link and I'm inside, and I can straight put my breakpoint in his code space and straight fix it inside with the integrated Visual Studio Code editor inside. So once I'm done with that, I straight commit it on that branch, which is already in the context of that code space environment. What that gives me is at least 2 hours free time because I did not go through the usual regular process that I'm going through before that. So that was a big sell point for me, and still using it, but there's a lot of tools that you can still use in the same way. So the setup, also a good thing, at least from my perspective. Why do I like it so much? Well, it's because it virtually has no learning curve. It's like zero. You just Google an example dev container JSON file, which is the only thing you need in your repository, alongside, of course, containerized application. Like, for example, you have Drupal, you need at least Docker Compose file. It should be Docker compatible, right? So then you get that dev container JSON. You can add a setup script. That's something I usually do. And by doing so, you can use that setup script to always import the database that's most relevant, for example. So you always have an up-to-date database and up-to-date instance for the specific branch. May it be a feature branch, a development, or even production copy. That's just your choice. What happens here is we're just configuring everything in just one simple step, and we push all of that into GitHub. That's step one. Then you have to just go to the settings and enable the code spaces. You can also enable the pre-builds if you want, but that's just optional. Pre-builds are just something that will get triggered anytime you do a change. And by doing that change, there will always be a build ready waiting for you. So you won't have to wait for that extra 1 or 2 minutes whenever you need it to. So whenever you want to go and build an instance and launch that and actually check something, or even do an actual development, because you can also do that. So it's not just to check how a feature works in the context of specific branch. You can straight check out a new branch, pick up a code space from there, and then build your feature straight inside, because it's just a regular editor. Again, you have to get used to Visual Studio Code, right? But that's a small drawback if you don't like it, other than having to do anything else, right? So once you're there, you have the complete power to do anything that you used to be doing locally on your machine, but on the web. But now you can share it. So if you remember when Docker became a thing, right? It was a lot of pain that was healed. No longer having to set up those manual local environments. That was a complete disaster. So now that's, for me, the next step. So you have the Docker in the web, but that's like one click and it's there, and then you can share it. So we're upgrading that paradigm in a way that it's not just consistent, now it's also shareable, but it's also available and highly replicatable, and also does not require any resources locally. Now I can spin up 20 of those on MacBook Air. That's what I'm here with. So that's a short demo of me clicking a button in a repo, and after 4 seconds, I'm already on the setup SH. What setup SH does in my case is, so when we see setup SH, that means that we are already past the point where the container is spinning up. That's my custom script, which usually is supposed to just import a database. But in that case, it spins up a whole Drupal from scratch, top to bottom. So there is like no code base in that repository. This one specifically was used for educational purposes, that repository. That's why every time you spin up a code space out of it, it sets up a new Drupal from scratch and it's empty, so you can practice some stuff, and then if you don't like it or break something, you just restart it and you got it all fresh. But now if you imagine all of that in the context of real world project, you actually have the code base here in the project, and the only thing you do after it's all spun up, you just import a database from somewhere, either S3 or, I'm not gonna say it, not in the repo. So that's a nice thing for newbies. It's a nice thing for seniors, because I consider myself such, and I'm using that quite a lot. Going next is speeding up development workflows. Same setup for every member. And why is that important? Well, we have all faced the challenges when we all have some little differences here and there, or somebody decides to do something in his way, or because he doesn't like something. Well, that's not going to happen here, because you just simply can't do it. I mean, you can go and brute force it somehow and do it manually, but on the next run, it's not going to be the same again. So that discourages you to somehow do some freelance stuff and like add things by your own that are not approved by the team, for example. So if it's not part of the general project, it will not be there the next time. So that's somehow consistency in the packages and the way of work. And it's junior friendly. Why am I saying that? Well, we managed to educate a lot of people how to use Drupal, but not just how to use Drupal. We managed to educate them from the very scratch. And if 350 of those were able to set up Drupal locally, not locally, but using GitHub CodeSpaces, without asking a single question of how to do it, I think that's more than enough. It doesn't need anything to be said. Because I've been through a lot of juniors in my career so far, and I've invested a lot of time of setting Drupal up on their PCs or fixing Docker instances, even though they are all the same on all environments, right? It's still Docker. Why shouldn't it be working? Well, it's just not. For some reason, they always touch something and they don't know what it does. And at the end, I didn't touch anything, but it's not working. So that's the end of it. And it's always the same. You can break it as many times as you want, and you can always restart it. And it's like a time machine. I mean, probably there are a lot of developers here, and many of you during your years of experience have faced the challenge of breaking something without even knowing how, and then, oh my God, I have to start from scratch, set up the whole project. It doesn't matter if it's Docker or anything else. You just have to do it, and it's not something we like. It's not something I like in particular, right? So that's nice for me. The use case. That was my actual use case, but it could be any other use case, or it could be your projects. It could be your initiatives or a different tool. So here I'm talking about the workflow and the concept of having shareable workflows or actual instances of your projects that can be either branch-based, they can be feature-based, they can be, your actual development can just happen on the web. It's just up to you how you use it. In that particular case, as I said, 350 people met Drupal with just 10 people for development team. Once we were done with developing that platform, that academy, it requires right now 0 time for maintenance, 0 time for actually answering questions and helping guiding the new talents. What they do is they start from the beginning, and then at the end, they know how to write Drupal modules. Probably you can guess from numbers like this how many actually finished at the end, but that's just how it is, you know. If you make a course for Drupal and 1,000 people show up, a 10 is a win, right? Well, we got 20, around 20, which I think is a pretty big win for people that we didn't have to cater for and actually stay by their side. So right now, month after month, we just receive new people finishing that academy. And I think that's a big win because nobody's even helping them. They just know where they have to go, which button they have to click, and then what their task is And they go through that, starting from PHP and then finishing with module development in Drupal. We don't have session right now for that academy because it's still in my native language, which is Bulgarian. But now, since the proof of concept proved to be really nice, working, everybody liked it, and it's now gaining speed. Right now I'm translating the lectures, so probably by the next DrupalCon we might meet again. Now it's time to remind you about the contribution days. Hopefully some of you, or all of you, will go there because that's why we have Drupal. Because of the contributions, it's all contributions. And thank you. Questions?
Thank you for the presentation. I really like it. And I have one question. What do you don't like in CodeSpace? Could you give, for example, 1 point?
Yeah. What I don't like in... Am I audible?
Yep.
Yes,
Yes,
no?
yes, yes.
Yes? Okay. What I don't like, maybe, is that there's not enough attention for it. I don't know why. But because of that lack of attention from the development communities, it's not actually being developed and updated the way I expect such tool to be. Because it took them a lot of time to actually fix some of the issues that were there a year ago. Now they're gone, right? Which is nice, but I expected that to happen faster, and it's probably because of the adoption and because we as developers usually, when we get comfortable with something, we just don't like not sticking with it. So we just stick with it until it becomes a pain, and then we look for another solution rather than trying a new solution and see if it fits a little better. So that's probably one of the things that I don't like, but it's still up to us. If you all don't like it, well, if it's unlikable, it won't change and it won't get updated and it won't get better in time. For now, maybe the only thing I would change and make better with that tool, if I were like working in GitHub and making those decisions, more marketing. More marketing. That's what it needs.
Thanks for the talk. I'm going to ask you about Gitpod. I don't know if you do have experience with it, and how do you compare it with GitHub CodeSpaces?
Which one?
Gitpod.
Gitpod. No, but I guess it's something really similar to this one, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to emphasize on not the tool, but the concept. So it could be, I think AWS also has something similar to that. It's
Cloud9, yeah.
yes, Cloud9. Actually, I heard of it after I submitted this session. And now it has a Cloud9 in the beginning, but in the context of, the other meaning, like having fun and stuff like that. And then I heard there is that thing. So now it's a little awkward. Hopefully no one of you came here for AWS version, right?
And does GitHub CodeSpaces has an integration with IDEs, like PHP Storm and VS Code?
I think it doesn't have any integrations with that because it has different purpose in the context of this type of development. So if you need it integrated with your PHP Storm, that means that you need it locally. Otherwise, you have to connect it. Yes, you can do that. I mean, if you're paying for that for the extensions that allow you to connect PHP Storm, for example, to Docker container, yes, you can do that because it's an actual Docker container. But why bother when there is already an editor there and the connection is way faster than if you actually connect it with PHP Storm? So the interaction with terminal and everything else and the breakpoints, they're just faster. I've tried it, but at the end, it was because I didn't like Visual Studio Code, right? I'm used to PHP Storm and JetBrains stuff, but now it's worth doing it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the talk. Do you know any open source projects that can do the same kind of thing instead of this proprietary solution?
I think I don't know any open source solutions, but I'm willing to bet that there are. It's like 1,000% that there are. The only difference that there might be is that then you're on your own. Yeah, and that's a risk I'm usually not willing to take because there's a lot at stake. And if it goes down everywhere. Yeah. And imagine something going down and nobody's able to not just see environments, but work at all because we're all working there. So my bet is on paying a little, and it's not really that much. I mean, the first 60 hours are coming out of their pocket. How much are you working, right? Is it too much? Yeah. So I prefer security in that context and stability. But if you're willing to do it yourself, I'm completely sure there are tools like this.
Sometimes some clients don't want to host on the cloud solution.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not actually legally like competent here. I don't know what their terms and conditions are, but I'm pretty sure that with paid account and the proper licenses, that won't actually go out. The public won't be indexed by AIs or get leaked somewhere.
I think the time is up.
Yes.
Yeah, like let's move to the next one.
What's that?
So like I think the time is up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
the time is up.
Sorry, thank you.